Hey, welcome. This is Mr. Elmhorst, a criminal intermediate 6th grade math teacher. The help video on our second assignment all about integers practice. We're going to look at TEKS 6.2b and 6.2c, and we're going to identify a number, its opposite, and the absolute value, and we can also locate integers on a number line. The first task at hand, write in the missing numbers. So we are always going to start at 0. Going to focus right here, and we're going to go left, which is negative, and right from 0, which is positive. I'm going to use a text box here, and we go one step left, which is going to be -1, and then we go back to 0 right here, our starting point, and then we go to the right. 1, 2, 3, so that's just going to be +3 or 3, 4, 5. We're just organizing and setting up our number line. Okay, there we go. And going to the next example, starting at 0, we're going to go left 2, -1, -2. And then we're going to continue to go to the next open space, -3, -4, -5, making sure that we are keeping them in order as we're moving down the number line. Going back to 0, let's try a box just to help us identify. We're going to focus on this point right here. Starting at 0. Going to the right is going to be positive. So I'm going to go 2 steps to the right, and that's going to be +2. Okay, next number line, going left, got -1, -4, and -7. And last example here, going to the right of 0 would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then going to the left of 0, -1, -2, -3. Okay. List the integers between the integers that are given. So we have 0 and 4. So complete numbers, no fractions or decimals. So then after 0, you have 1, 2, 3. And going left of 0, we have negative. You have -1, then you have -2, -3, -4, and -5. And then you got -6. So these are the numbers that are between. So if we go between -3, starting at -3, going to the right, we'd have to count down -2, -1, 0. Do not forget that 0 is an integer, but it's the start of the whole numbers. And then we have 1 and 2. Those are the numbers that would be between. So absolute value, we discussed that yesterday and practiced a little bit. So the value of A, moving to the right, we can count this. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So A is +5 or just 5. So then the absolute value of that number is 5 units from 0. So it's just the distance. How far is it? Okay, starting at 0, we're going to go left 1, 2, 3, 4. So the value of A for this example would be -4. And the absolute value is not talking about an integer. -4 is an integer. The absolute value is what is that number or the distance of that integer, and that's 4. Okay, and it looks like this: -10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So the integer is -17. We need to know direction. But absolute value is not asking direction, it's just asking about the number. And the number is 17. So the absolute value of the integer -17 is just 17. Find the absolute value of each one. The distance of +9 from 0 is 9. The distance of -4 from 0 is 4. -4 is the integer. What is the number? The number is 4. -17, the distance is 17. And 23, the distance is 23. So the opposite is back to talking about integers. Absolute value is just distance. Opposite is going to be looking at positives and negatives. So the opposite of -27, or opposite of 27 would be -27 in the opposite direction of the number line. Opposite of -98 is 98. The opposite of 72 is -72. The opposite of -108 is 108, a positive one. And you can have very big numbers, but the opposite direction of going positive, 3,200 would be going -3,200. Okay, those are just quick concept review. So now we're going to look at integer models. So on the left side over here, we have a shaded integer counter would be negative, and an unshaded integer counter is going to represent a positive. So a -1 and a +1. So if we go down below and we look at this model, evaluate the integer models below, write the integer and the opposite that would need to go with it to give you 0. So for example, I think I'm going to write over top here. So this is -1, -2, -3. I think that color could be a little more friendly here. So we got -1, -2, -3. So in this model, we have -3. And when you have 3 negatives, in order to get back to 0, you would need to add in 3 positives. 1, 2, 3 to give you 0. And this is building the concept of 0 pairs. When given an integer, what would you need to do to that integer to cancel it or 0 it out? So let's make a note over here. A positive and a negative together make 0, and that is called a 0 pair. Okay. So looking at the next one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 negatives, and in this model, there's actually 1 positive already. So that's +1. So you have 4 negatives and 1 positive. What else would you need to put in here to take you from -4 to +1 back to 0? Well, 4 negatives, you would need 3 more positives with that 1 to give you 0. So we go in here and model that. In order to get 0, you would have to add in 3 more positives to take you back to 0. So it's just looking at the models and what is the 0 concept. So here we have 1, 2 positives. And from +2, you would need together 2 negatives to get you back to 0. And we can model this up here, 2 negatives to give you 0. And we have 1, 2, 3, 3 positives, 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. So you got 3 positives and 4 negatives. What other integer would you have to put in here to get you back to 0? There's 1 pair, there's 2 pairs, here's 3 pairs. You would have to put another 1 in here to cancel that out and take you back to 0. So you would have to put in 1, 3 plus 4 negatives plus 1 more positive would take you back to 0. All right. Complete the horizontal and vertical number lines in the graph to the right with integers. You're going to start with 0 in the center, otherwise known as the origin. As we do this, we are creating a coordinate plane with 4 quadrants using 2 number lines with positive and negative integers. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and we're going to call this our 0, 0 point. And going to the right is going to be positive. Going to the left is negative. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Going to the left, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. So this is going to be called our x-axis, and that is horizontal. Now, in order to make a coordinate plane, we're going to have a second number line, and positive is going to be going up, and negative is going to be going down. So we count up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And going down below 0, starting at 0, going down is going to represent our negatives. We got -1, -2, -3, -4. Oh, got a glitch. -5 and -6. So this creates our coordinate plane, and this second number line, we're going to call that our y number line, or the y-axis. And in the coordinate plane, just a quick note, coordinates are going to create corners. Positive, positive coordinates is going to be called quadrant 1. And when we go left and up, we're going left, which is negative, then up, which is positive, and that's going to be called our quadrant 2. Going left and then down, left is negative, down is negative, and we are just rolling around here in a C pattern, creating our quadrants and labeling it. So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So this is going to be our 4 corners or our 4 quadrants. Now this one's going to go right and down. Right is positive, down is negative. So that will identify any time whether you have positive or negative numbers on a coordinate plane as to which quadrant you will be in. Okay, which integer is the correct answer to the following? The greatest integer that has the most value that is closest to the positives, less than 0, would be -1. The integer before -30, you're going to be looking at the next number down, which is -29. The opposite of 7 would be -7. 1 greater than -5. If it was positive, that would be 6. But because they're negatives, we're going to be counting down towards the number line towards 0, and -4 is greater than -5. 2 less than -12. Got -12, -11, -10. 1, 2. So -10 is going to be 2 less. Answer the following questions with the integers of -6 to 6. The integer is less than 3. The integer is greater than -3. So this would be, we could say -2. The integer is less than 3. We could say 2. The integer is less than -1. We could say that's -3. It's more negative. The integer is greater than -2. We could say 0. 0 is greater than -2. Okay, place the following points on the coordinate plane below. Remember, we are starting with the x number line and then the y number line, otherwise x and y axis. So on the first one here, x is +2, y is +5. So we're going to go +2 for x, and then we're going to go +5 for y. And where those two coordinates come together, that is our point. That's our coordinate our ordered pair, or that is our point on the coordinate plane. And we're going to label this A. So next example, x is -2, y is -1. I'm going to go on that x number line to -2, and then we're going to go y -1 and label that point B. X is -2, y is positive. So we're going to go -2, and then we're going to go up 5, and that would be locating C. And then last point, x is 2, y is -1. I'm going to go positive and then -1, and that is point D. Now, what they did here is they actually put all this together, and if you closed all of these points in, what shape would it create? Okay, this is going to be rectangle CADB. Rectangle. I think I'm going to use the typing. It's a little neater. This would be rectangle CADB, just going for the corners as they are labeled. Make sure you have completed all of the parts of this assignment. Your name is on top, and go ahead and submit it for your homework.